Welcome to Take Two with Freddy. Real talk about second chances, real life, and the power of rewriting your story. I am Freddy Freundlich, entrepreneur, mentor, and storyteller. And here's the deal. If I didn't walk it, I don't talk it. Each week, we spend a little time together, laughing, reflecting, and hopefully walking away just a little more aware, a little more grounded, maybe even a little more in control of what really matters. So, what's on my mind today? Sliding doors. Now, I'm going back a bit, probably the late 90s. There was a movie that stuck with me called, obviously, Sliding Doors. And it was one of those films that, very Hollywood, but it left me thinking a long time after it was over. The idea was pretty simple, but it was powerful. There was a woman running to catch a train, and in one version of her life, she made the train, and the other, she missed it. And from that one tiny moment, something in which we would normally just brush it off, it just turned her world really upside down. And from that point on, in the film, her entire life splits into two completely different realities. Had different relationships in them and different experiences. And again, this is a film, so we get to see both sides, but in reality, in real life, we only get to see the one we're living. Now, these differences, these different outcomes, all came because of a door opening or closing a second too early or a second too late. And I remember watching this film and thinking that this is not just a movie, this is life. Because when you really step back and look at it, our lives are filled with these moments. Tiny, almost invisible moments. Things we don't even register as important at the time can make a major difference in our lives. Think of a humongous puzzle, tens, even hundreds of thousands of pieces, and we're talking about one little piece which makes no difference at the time. A phone call you almost didn't answer, or a meeting you almost didn't get to go to, a person you almost didn't speak to. Or on the flip side, you have a delay, you happen to miss an opportunity, sort of a wrong place, wrong time moment. But somehow, in the big picture, these moments become the catalyst for something much, much bigger. And here's where it gets interesting. Because at the end of the day, if you really think about it, we don't control most of those doors. In fact, we control hardly any of those doors. We don't control the timing. We don't control who shows up in our lives. We don't control the random events that shape our path. All that is out of our hands. And I know that's so uncomfortable for people because human beings like control. We like to believe that if we plan enough and think enough and strategize enough, we can map out exactly where we're going. But life simply doesn't work that way. It just doesn't. And if you've lived long enough, as I have, you start to see this very clearly. You start to realize that some of the biggest turning points in our lives come from things which we never planned. And at the same time, some of the things that we planned the most really never happened. So then the question becomes, if we don't control the doors, where, if any place, do we have control? And this is where it gets a bit sticky, but also practical. This is where you get to show a little bit of you, of your power. Because while we don't control the doors, we absolutely control what we do once it opens or closes. You see, ladies and gentlemen, what we do control is our reactions. I had a moment just the other day, just like this. All of you who have been listening for a while know that I'm a big walker. Every day I'm out there for a walk. And this was just a regular day doing my walk, walking around with my earpods in, and I was listening to a podcast. And I step into a crosswalk, and it was an official crosswalk where legally the driver has to stop the moment he sees someone trying to cross the street. But this car didn't stop. He went right through. Now, besides being illegal, it could also be very dangerous. Now, in this case, it wasn't. I saw him in time, I adjusted, nothing, no harm done physically. But here's the part that I want to get to. My first reaction, I was angry. That was my instinctive reaction. I wanted to yell at this guy. I wanted to say something. I want to bang down on his car. And of course, it wasn't something kind, by the way. And if I'm being honest, there was a version of me not too long ago that would have, again, without thinking twice, just my reaction in the moment, without thinking, I would have done something. But here was a little different. Here, I took a breath, a pause, a very small pause. And I asked myself, what's the upside here? What do I gain by reacting? What's in it for me? In other words, what door am I about to open if I go down this road? So in the end, I didn't say anything. He drove off, and I kept walking. So you would say, okay, great story, end of story, right. But not really. Because for me, that was a sliding door moment. That moment had multiple possible outcomes. 100 things could have happened. Okay? So here I go. Let's assume I would have yelled at this guy. He might have ignored me. He might have yelled back. He might have stopped the car. He might have got out of the car. Here we have an interaction now. And there's energy, and it's escalating. And in the end, maybe nothing happens. Maybe something serious happens. But one thing is certain. Whatever would have happened, it would have stayed with me. It would linger. It would change my happy-go-lucky state to something I don't want to be. And it might even impact the next interaction I have, and the next one, and the next one. You see, folks, that's how these things work. One reaction leads to another. And before you know it, your whole day, sometimes more than that, is shaped by one tiny, ridiculous decision. But in this case, I let it go. And interestingly enough, within a minute or two, I felt better. Okay, it passed. I felt lighter. I felt good. And I moved on with my day. Now, I don't know what happened on his end. Maybe nothing, maybe everything. Don't know if he normally does that, if something serious was on his mind. Don't know anything, but I do know that it's not my business. What happened on my end, that's my business, and that's where my power lies. You see, when we're talking about sliding doors, it's very easy to fall into a trap. And it can be a dangerous one because we start thinking. We start thinking, if only I had done this, if only that didn't happen, if only I had caught the train in time. And we end up going down this road of replaying our lives. We are second guessing and we have regret and we're trying to control something that's already gone. And you know how this works. And I'll tell you straight, that's a losing game because there's absolutely no end to it. There are infinite versions of your life that could have happened. infinite. But none of them matter because only one version did. And that's the version you're living with right now. So instead of trying to control the doors or wishing different ones had happened, what if we start focusing on how we walk through the ones that are right in front of us? Let me give you another angle on this. People love to talk about success. They love to sort of reverse engineer it. And they will ask when they see other people, what did this person do right? What steps did they take? What was their sort of magic formula? And there is value in that, in trying to learn from someone else, but to a point, because what's often missing from that conversation is the timing of it all, the luck that this person may have had, his or her chance encounters, unpredictable events, in other words, the sliding doors. Because for every successful outcome, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of invisible moments that could have gone the other way, but didn't. So, where does this leave us? Are we now saying that nothing matters? That we have no control at all? Of course not. It means something very specific. What it does mean is that your state matters more than your circumstances. It means your response matters more than the specific event. It means that who you are in that very moment is more important than what's happening around you. I've seen this so many times in business. I've seen deals fall apart that turned out later on to be the best thing that ever happened. At the time, oh wow, it was so frustrating, disappointing, even scary. But looking back, that door that closed led to a better one opening. And it wasn't because of magic, it was because of how I handled the situation, how I responded. And the same thing I can say in relationships, even in health. That's what life is about. We're consistently being presented with moments that we don't control, but we are always in control of how we meet them. And folks, here's something else I've learned. Your reaction doesn't just affect the outcome, it affects you. It affects who you become, how you mold your identity. Because every time you choose how to respond, you're reinforcing something. You're either reinforcing reactivity or you're reinforcing awareness. You're either building a habit of losing control or a habit of owning it. You know, if you speak to a banker, they will always rave about the magic of compounded interest. And here, that's exactly what we're talking about. We're talking about you compounding. That's what's happening here. By doing the one small thing here, it leads to another and another. And let me be very clear about something. I'm not telling you guys to be passive or to let people walk all over you. I don't need you to suppress your emotions. That's not what we're talking about at all. What I'm saying is that there is a difference between reacting and responding. It may sound like semantics, but it's very real. Reacting is automatic, it's an emotional and unconscious response. Okay? Responding is intentional. It's when you're aware, when you choose. And it's that small gap between the two where our power lies. So, how do you build that? How do you actually use this in real life? Well, it's very simple. Not easy, but very simple. It starts with awareness, just noticing. It's about catching yourself in the moment. The split second when you feel something in you is starting to heat up a bit. You're getting angry, frustrated. You feel the pulse. You feel your heart. You feel you're afraid. And instead of immediately acting on it, just for 1 second, pause. That's it. You don't need a whole meditation session. You don't have to do something crazy. Just take a little breath and pause. And in that moment, ask yourself, where's the upside for me? Look at yourself, not the emotional self. Ask yourself, what's in it for me? What is the best version of me at this point? The reactive side or the responsive side? And that's all it takes. Again, not easy, but simple. And I'll tell you something else. The more you do this, the more you realize something powerful. You start to feel less like a victim of circumstance and more like a participant in your life. You start to see that even when things don't go the way you had planned, you still are in control. And that creates a certain calm within you, and that calm creates confidence. And it's not because you control everything, because you don't need to. So next time something doesn't go your way, you miss the plane, the deal falls through, someone cuts you off, something unexpected happens, instead of asking, woe is me, why did this happen? Just try asking yourself, okay, what now? What's my next move? Because this is the door you actually control. And maybe, just maybe, that's the real point of sliding doors. Not showing us necessarily how fragile life is, but to show us where our power really lies. And our power is not in the doors themselves, but in how we walk through them. Guys, I want to thank you once again for spending this time with me on this episode of Take Two with Freddy. If something here resonated, sit with it for a moment, try it. Catch a moment this week, just one, and see what happens when you choose your response instead of reacting. Because in these small moments, as I mentioned before about compound interest, they add up much more than you think. So this is Freddy Freundlich, and remember, if I didn't walk it, I don't talk it. Please like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.